Hello, everyone who's joining. Welcome. It's going to take a few moments here while all of our attendees join. Caitlin, could you check and see if everyone's getting in the meeting okay?
Yes, I see 46 people are in the room. I need to just make sure that that our guest is able to join as well.
Right. Again, thank you to everyone who's joining. We're just going to wait a few minutes as people continue to enter the Zoom. Maybe in the meantime, if you all want to let us know where you're tuning in from in the world, in the chat box, we'd love to hear where our viewers are today. Great. Germany, Spain, UK, Canada, Belgium. Excellent. It's great to see so many Democrats coming out for today's event. Serbia, France. Great. Hungary. Right. We have an OH-11 native with us. Fantastic. Do we have any other OH-11 voters joining us today? See, Karen is there in OH-12. Welcome. All right. We have some OH-11 voters on here. Fantastic. All right, another OH-11, 13. And I'm joined today, as you can see, with the chair of Germany, Kenton Barnes, also an Ohio voter, proudly with his Ohio Zoom background. Kenton, which district are you in?
I'm in Ohio 5.
Ohio 5. In the West, right? Toledo.
That's correct.
Great. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. I think we are just now being joined by Nina Turner. So excellent. And we'll give our attendees just another second and get started. Thank you for your patience. Excellent. Hello, Nina.
Hello, Candace. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you.
Good.
All right. Good. We're very excited to have you here. And I guess we will officially start the event. And just for everyone's knowledge, this is being recorded, which I believe you consented to when you joined. All right. Great. So from all of those messages in the chat box, we are so excited to have people tuning in from all around the world, from Hungary to Norway to Canada. Really, thankful that you could join us as we kick off our Meet the Candidate series for the upcoming special election in Ohio's 11th Congressional District. My name is Candace Karistan, and I was recently elected as Democrats Abroad's International Chair For those of you who aren't familiar with us, Democrats Abroad is the largest organization of US citizens outside of the United States, and we are also an official arm of the Democratic Party. It's our mission to provide Americans abroad a voice in our government and elect Democratic candidates by mobilizing the overseas vote. With your help, we thankfully did this in 2020. We can say with certainty that the votes from abroad were key to Democrats' wins in Arizona and Georgia. However, as recent times have shown us, our engagement in the political process must extend beyond voting in presidential elections. And this starts now with the Ohio 11 special election for the US House of Representatives. As a bit of background, this special election was called after Marcia Fudge, the district's most recent congresswoman, was named by President Biden to serve as Secretary of Housing and Urban Development. The primary special election is scheduled for August 3rd and the general for November 2nd. If you vote in Ohio's 11th congressional district, you can get further information about the election and request your ballot at votefromabroad.org. If you need help, voter assistance will also be provided at the end of this event. As Democrats Abroad, we're striving to make the political process more tangible and closer to you, the voters, because we know that's key to getting more votes from abroad and to elevating our voices with lawmakers back home. That's the basis for today's series, which kicks off with us hearing from Nina Turner. I'd like to note that in our commitment to ensure a level playing field for all Democratic primary candidates, we have not endorsed any Ohio 11 candidate, and all candidates are welcome to speak to our members. As further events are confirmed, these will be posted on our website, democratsabroad.org. I'd now like to introduce Kenton Barnes, who's helping organize the back end of this event. And I'd also like to turn over the mic to Antar Keith and Caitlin Kennedy, who will introduce Nina Turner and ask her questions about her candidacy and vision. Caitlin is a Texas voter living in Leipzig, Germany, and she currently serves as co-chair of Democrats Abroad Germany's Progressive Caucus and as Germany's communications coordinator. Antar is a New York voter also living in Leipzig, who co-chairs the Germany Progressive Caucus as well, and is chair of Democrats Abroad's newly formed Reparations Task Force, a body Democrats Abroad leaders overwhelmingly elected to create at our global meeting in May. Caitlin and Antar, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you, Candace and Kenton, and welcome everybody. We're so excited that you tuned in today to hear from our very special guest, Nina Turner. Before we get started, Antar and I just want to talk very briefly about the groups that we're here representing today. So as Candace mentioned, we are the co-chairs of the Germany Progressive Caucus. That is the Germany branch of the Global Progressive Caucus. And in the Germany Progressive Caucus, we're very committed to pushing for positive change within Democrats Abroad and in Congress. We have a guiding motto. It's educate, agitate, organize. And that's exactly what we aim to do in all of our events and activities. So if you want to stay up to date with all the great stuff that we do, you can head over to www.democratsabroad.org/PC and become a member.
Okay, yes. So not only am I co-chair of the Germany Progressive Caucus, I'm also here representing the newly formed Democrats Abroad Reparations Task Force, which will be led by me and my team. As a global level advocacy group, our goal will be to work with all US reparation organizations, for example, NAARC and NCOBRA, and state reparations task forces, such as California's. Another goal will be to educate Americans on the moral, legal, and national obligations for reparations and to coordinate voter mobilization behind local, state, and federal reparations legislation.
All right, and now for the moment that everyone came for, we are so glad to be joined today by Nina Turner, a candidate for the Ohio 11 House race. So we just want to briefly introduce Ms. Turner for all of you. She grew up the eldest of 7 children to working class parents in Northeast Ohio. She took her first job at age 14 to help support her siblings and keep the family afloat. After working her way through community college and graduate school, she started a career dedicated to keeping Ohio's poor, working poor, and barely middle-class families afloat too. Turner made history in 2005 as the first woman to represent Ward 1 on the Cleveland State Council, and again in 2008 as the first Black woman to serve as a state senator in Ohio's 25th district. In the legislature, Turner repeatedly defended against attacks on women's healthcare freedom, partnered with organized labor to protect collective bargaining rights, and led the effort to create Ohio's first task force on community relations to end racial profiling.
2020, as national co-chair of Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign, Nina put support nationwide for progressive policies like the Green New Deal, $15 minimum wage, and healthcare as a human right in the form of Medicare for all. Nina is running for Congress to deliver on those policies for Ohio's 11th congressional district. She is on a mission to build an America as good as its process, an America committed to justice in all its forms, racial, social, economic, healthcare, and environmental justice for all of us. Now, before we begin, Ms. Turner, welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, Antar. Thank you, and Caitlin, for that wonderful introduction to Chairwoman, to Candace, to Kenton. Thank you all so very much for having me. All of the members of Dems Abroad, thank you so much. I have worked with you over the years, so I feel like in many ways I'm coming home to many, many different countries that you are in right now, but I feel very much welcomed by the Dems Abroad.
Yes, we're so glad to have you back with us again today. We're going to go over an outline of today's event for everyone on the call. The first portion of our event, which we have about 20 minutes set aside for, Antar and I are going to pose some questions to you, Ms. Turner, and then we have a second portion of the event for which we also have around 20 minutes, where we have audience questions that were collected in advance. After that, of course, you'll have the opportunity to share a closing statement with us, but stick around, everyone out there in the audience, because we have some awesome volunteers who can provide direct voter assistance to make sure you're all squared away to vote today. So jumping right in, the first question we have for you is this. Why are you running for Congress? And why are you the best candidate to represent Ohio 11?
I think we may be having some sound issues. I'm not sure, so I hope everybody can hear me. I know Caitlin and Antar, when I mute myself, I can hear you guys very clearly, but when I unmute to talk, I'm not sure, if people can hear me clearly. So folks, let us know. I know in the chat I've been getting messages. Okay, people are saying that they hear me. So thank you so much for that question. I'm running in this seat to really continue my work, my work in terms of lifting the poor, the working poor, and the barely middle class in this district, in this state, in this nation. And as Dems Abroad, you understand that we are citizens of the world. I mean, I'm talking to the very people who understand that, and you're living that out every single day. I'm running because there's a need here. There is a need to have the body politic of this nation bend towards the will of the people who need it the most. And I'm running because I understand through a lived experience how important it is to center, to have power center the poor, the working poor, and the barely middle class. I am running because there are needs in this community. It is portions of greater Cleveland and also portions of greater Akron that we must run, that I am running to ensure that people move from just surviving every single day to thriving. A part of my policy platform is that of which I've been working on for the last, really all of my life, but in a concentrated way over the last 6-7 years, as I have been privileged to be with Senator Sanders, both in 2016, a national co-chair in 2020 with some incredible folks like Congressman Ro Khanna, Mayor Euleen Cruz, and the ice cream maker himself, Ben Cohen, one of the co-founders of Ben and Jerry's. But to be side by side with people just like that and others who are fighting to create an America, in the words of Congresswoman Barbara Jordan, that is as good as its promise. She once said in a quote, "What the people want is very simple. They want an America as good as its promise." And that is why I am running to help create an America as good as it's promised. Nobody can do the great things that are necessary all by themselves, but with people who have a conscious mind and who are committed to justice, we can get those things done. So I do believe we should increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour, understanding very clearly that is the floor, not the ceiling, that the minimum wage in the United States of America has not increased for over 12 years. The average is $7.25. I'm running because I do believe that we should cancel student debt, that nobody should be burdened with that kind of debt, doing what they need to do to make their lives better, the lives of their families better, and the lives of their community better, that we ought to cancel that student debt and lift that burden. That is both a class conscious thing to do from a policy perspective, but it also has a racial justice component to it too, because Black people, and especially Black women, carry the largest amount of student debt. So we can solve both of those conundrums, or at least bring some more justice and equity by canceling student debt. I do believe that the greatest existential crisis to the world is climate chaos, and that we as a nation, but also as a world, must stand up side by side and say that we are going to tackle this together, that the damage that human beings have done to Mother Earth, we must turn it around, and we owe the ecosystem that depends on human beings doing the right thing. We owe it. I'm running because labor, the House of Labor, needs a champion too. I believe in the PRO Act that passed the House of Representatives. Need to see that pass the United States Senate. I am running because voting rights, once again, are under assault, as there are 400 bills percolating in legislatures all over this country, including in the great state of Ohio, to strip away, to put one more barrier up for access to voting. And we know that when they do those kinds of things, and it's being led by Republicans, when they do those kinds of things, there are populations of people who are hurt the most. I want the franchise to be unfettered for everybody, but the hurt is to communities of color, to our disabled community, to elders, to students, you name it. The marginalized populations in this country suffer the most disproportionately when people want to change the rules to the game. So in make a long story less long, I am running to push for justice in all of its forms: social, economic, political, racial, and environmental. All of the justices. I am running to be a part of a team of people, both elected and not elected, who have a conscious mind and who understand that if ordinary people like us put a little extra on our ordinary, extraordinary things can and will happen.
Thank you so much. And jumping off that, our next question concerns Medicare for All. You have been one of the leading advocates for Medicare for All and for many other progressive policies. Democrats Abroad actually calls for Medicare for All in our platform. And at the Progressive Caucus, it's one of our priorities to make sure that those policy stances and resolutions don't just stay on paper, but translate into action. So living abroad, many of us were very lucky to live in countries where we do have affordable or even universal healthcare and education. And no, our society is not falling apart around us as a result of that. So how can we, as Americans abroad and as the Progressive Caucus abroad, best share our stories and support Medicare for All advocacy efforts stateside beyond just getting out the vote? And if elected, what would you do to ensure that Medicare for All becomes a reality for all Americans?
Thank you for that, Caitlin. I think the Dems abroad, Americans abroad, you all are the best people to testify, if you will. You know, I come from a Black church tradition. My mother was a preacher, so testimony is a big deal in the Black church. You all are the best witnesses to how it can be and how it should be. You know, I was just doing an interview with someone who, asked me the question, and they said, some people say, and I'm paraphrasing, you're dreaming too big, you're reaching too high. What do you say to people like that? And I'm paraphrasing that. You want to elect leaders who do dream big, who do reach high. Why do you want to elect somebody that's okay with things as they are? We need to imagine things as they can be, or to reimagine, as Dr. Eddie Glaude always talks about, a professor at Princeton University who wrote a book called Democracy in Black, and wrote this really good book about Brother James Baldwin, who did live abroad. You all are the best witnesses. So I want to encourage the Dems abroad to continue to use your networks, to continue to use social media, to make it plain about the experiences that you are having in other countries and how it could be in our country if we were to just suspend our disbelief. We are the wealthiest nation on the face of the earth, and there is no reason why we cannot have Medicare for all. We are the only industrialized nation on the face of the earth that does not have some type of universal health care. We must improve and expand Medicare as it exists right now. And even our elders who have it don't have the benefit of hearing aids and dental and vision. We need to make Medicare as it exists more comprehensive. That's the expansion, the improvement part, and to expand it to everybody in the United States of America. It is both the morally right thing to do, and it's also the economically right thing to do. It would save so much money. And even a right-wing think tank had to come to that conclusion. Healthcare costs are out of control. We pay more money in the United States of America, and we don't even have better outcomes. We cannot continue to commodify healthcare in the United States of America. It is wrong. Businesses will benefit. So this is both, good morally, but also good economically. And let me share one story to Caitlin and Antar on this particular point, and to all my family and friends who are listening today. On Juneteenth, I was walking my community, and a lady shared her story, and she said, Senator, I have health care because I have a job, but that might not be the reality tomorrow. We all know what COVID did. 15 million people, jobs disrupted. Some of those people had full-fledged health care, some of them did not. We already had about 80, almost 90 million people who are underinsured or uninsured in the United States of America. You add what COVID did, and we're approaching 100 million people who were either underinsured and uninsured. But back to my story. She said, I believe in you because you believe in Medicare for all. She has type 1 diabetes. For a 90-day supply of her medication to live, I'm not talking about cosmetic things, I'm talking about to live, costs her $4,000. The cost is $4,000 just to live. She said, thank God I got health insurance. But I want other people to have what I have, and I also know that what I have could be in peril at any moment. I am fighting for people like that lady. I am fighting for people like my mother, who died at the young age of 42 years old with no insurance, no money in the bank, nothing, among the working poor. So when people say to me that we cannot have that, I question that, because it's not a matter of can we, it's a matter of do we have the intestinal fortitude in the United States of America among our elected leaders? Because guess what? The majority of the American people are where we are, Dems abroad. They support universal health care. So it's not the people we got to worry about. It's the types of politicians that we elect who are owned, absolutely owned by the pharmaceutical industry, owned by the healthcare industry. That is what this is about. And so we have to elect more leaders and also have a grassroots push, because I am also not one of those that believe that elected leaders have the only answers. It is people like you who have the answers that must push politicians to absolutely do the right thing. I'm going to tell you what I'm encouraged by. 3 things. Number 1 or 2, in places like New York and also California, you have elected officials pushing a statewide universal health care. We know that if we use Canada, for example, it started in a Providence, Saskatchewan, I believe it did, before it was nationalized. So I'm encouraged that we have elected officials in those states who are willing to push to have universal health care in their states. And then also Congressman Ro Khanna has a bill pending in the Congress right now that would give states the ability to have a type of universal health care in their states. Very encouraged by that. So Dems abroad, thank you for what you are doing to continue to push this. Again, quoting Congresswoman Barbara Jordan, what the people want is very simple. They want an America as good as its promise. Part of creating an America as good as its promise is to ensure that everybody has health care. Your zip code, how you identify, whether you are rich or poor, should not determine whether or not you can have health care. All human life has value. And if we really believe that as a nation, we would have universal health care. So Dems abroad, I'm standing side by side with you, baby, shoulder to shoulder, as we push this country towards universal health care.
Thank you so much for that answer. The next question. Progressives often hear we need to communicate our policy views almost as one-size-fits-all type measures so as not to alienate certain potential supporters, particularly the white working class. At the same time, we heard some people say that Bernie was not perhaps as successful as he could have been in South Carolina during the last presidential primary because he tended to speak on these sorts of universal policies, with some people saying that he didn't do enough to directly address the specific needs of Black voters. Something our Progressive Caucus members are very concerned with is how we can most successfully communicate about our progressive agenda in a way that brings people into the movement. In your campaign, how are you trying to communicate the benefits of progressive policies in an inclusive fashion while at the same time centering people who face the brunt of discriminatory policies?
Caitlin, I'm a Black woman in America, a conscious-minded Black woman in America. My very existence, not just because I'm a Black woman, but because I'm a conscious-minded Black woman in America, makes me, my lived experience says that I must fight for these things. And on the Sanders campaign, I am very proud of the work that we did and the policies we were pushing, because there's an intersectionality to those things. So Caitlin, the point that you're bringing up is true. We were often the people who did not want to see these policies come to life, wanted to drive a wedge between Senator Sanders and our campaign and the Black community or the brown community, but it was totally untrue. As somebody that took on South Carolina, as I traveled the entire country, but took on South Carolina as a special assignment, I can tell you that there are residents in South Carolina that were rocking with Senator Sanders and the agenda that he was putting forward. They were rocking, and they were Black, and they were brown, and they were poor white. They were rocking with that. The working class people in this country, whether they are Black or white or Hispanic, gay or straight, Jew or Gentile, Muslim, all the identities, poor people need the type of policy agendas that our campaign was being the champion of, and what Senator Sanders is still being the champion of in that Senate right now today. They need them. Who could benefit more? All people will benefit from Medicare for all, but because African Americans suffer disproportionately, using the African American community as the example here, suffer disproportionately, who could reap the benefit more from a universal healthcare system that says all? We want to say all because everybody needs to have skin in the game. All Black women die at higher rates in this country right now, die at higher rates in childbirth. Black babies die at higher rates compared to our white sisters. Right now, today, who could benefit more? People of color would benefit from Medicare for all. It is both a racial justice issue and a class justice issue. See, we got to speak the love language of the people that we're talking to. Maybe people don't want to be labeled progressive, but as I have traveled this country and I travel in my district, people want Medicare for all. People want us to increase the minimum wage. They may not label that as a progressive issue. What they will say to me is, Sister Turner, this is an issue that matters to me because it's about my very survival. It's about the survival of my children and my community. It's a liberation issue. So I think as those of us who do identify as progressives, or as the mayor of my city calls me, he just says, look, Senator Turner is for the people. This is about people, period. So we might do well to just kind of put away the labels and just say, hey, are you for people living a good life? If you are, here are some components. Here are some policy components that will aid people in being able to live a good life. Medicare for all. Canceling student debt, which also has a race and a class component to it, because Black women hold the largest amount of student debt in the United States of America. Caste and class going together. How can we lift people and take the burden? We can cancel student debt. Legalizing marijuana, because I was taking notes, Case, and you were talking, come on now, legalizing marijuana. Who took the brunt of the war on drugs? Who was locked up the most disproportionately? Black and brown people, especially Black men. There are people in prison right now on BS drug charges that had to do with marijuana. Let's legalize, let's decriminalize and legalize marijuana. Let's expunge records, and then let's put an economic component to it. What's the economic component, you say, Sister Turner? I'm glad you asked. That if Black people bore the brunt of it, Brother Antar, in terms of reparations, We need to make sure that the Black community is on the economic side of the ledger. It's not just enough to expunge records. No, we must make sure that they can own companies, from the packaging to the delivery to the growing to the selling. So it's all kinds of things that we can do to close the income and wealth gap. It's all kinds of things that we can do to ensure that this is truly a nation where freedom rings for all. And in order to do that, we must recognize the good, the bad, and the ugly. We must recognize our past. We must recognize how policy positions have been created that exacerbate race and class and gender and sexual orientation and all the other isms. We must recognize those things, and then we must decide what the policy fix is for those. Poverty is a policy choice. Redlining was a policy choice. Denying Black veterans the same level of the GI Bill as their white counterparts was a policy choice. Health disparities is a policy choice. Food deserts, a policy choice. Not paying women their whole damn dollar, a policy choice. We can undo all of this. We can unring this bell by making new policies. Caitlin, I'm on the roll. Antar, I'm on the roll. I'm gonna settle down.
We love it. Keep it up.
Yeah. I couldn't get enough of it, actually. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a great jump off point for my next set of questions. And just very briefly, it's very, very almost mightily important that this conversation become more of a national conversation of, reparatory justice. But first, considering the Biden administration has recently stricken childcare, education, and climate justice from the bipartisan infrastructure plan, while at the same time expanding police powers across the country, how should Black progressives, well, all progressives, but most notably Black progressives, consider the formalization of a very personal and indeed almost sacred day, Juneteenth, as a federal public holiday? With millions of working class Americans, many whom are of color, working in a gig economy where they will not even get the day off, and with the demands of Black Lives Matter for reallocation of police funding completely ignored, Ms. Turner, do you view the formalization of Juneteenth as a public holiday a real radical victory, or merely a co-opting of our culture as a hollow gesture? And if elected, what would you do to advance the goals of Black Lives Matter?
Wow. Antar, you're not asking the easy questions today, you and Caitlin. For Mother Opal Lee, who's from Texas, she was the elder, she's 94 now, I believe, who traveled this country over a course of years. And I forget how many, it could even be decades. I think it is decades, but somebody can look that up and maybe put that in the chat. I'm happy for her. And she's been marching in the streets all over the country trying to get Juneteenth to be a national holiday. Juneteenth originated in Texas, as we know. It is really rooted in the fact that the Emancipation Proclamation of 1863, Emancipation Proclamation, and how, in fact, the word was passed down to the African American community. There was no Twitter and twerking and Instagramming and all that other stuff we used to message. Brother Kenton, wasn't none of that. So the word had to spread. And Texas was the last place to get the message in 1865. I don't know why I'm stuck in the 1865. And so the word got out. And so that holiday has been celebrated for a very, very long time in Texas. And for Mother Opal Lee and probably some others, they wanted to nationalize the holiday. So I am excited because she put in the work and the sweat equity. Now, you asked the question about a radical victory. I think a radical victory, we need to put some we got to put something of we have to expand the substance of. I'm trying to choose my words carefully here, because I don't want to devalue what Mother Lee worked for, and that's why I'm being very careful. That was important to her, and she got it done, and that was no small feat. Now, what can we add to that? I think in honor of Mother Opal Lee and the ancestors and some of our foremothers and forefathers who are still walking on this earth right now, who are in these various movements for liberation, what we can do to push that, or to put some more power behind that, is the policies that we are working towards and fighting for right now. That having a national holiday is one thing, but to radically change the dynamics of the lived experience of Black folks in America is another thing. So let's just go on and add to it while we at it. Because what was the premise of Juneteenth, or what is the premise of Juneteenth? It's freedom. Now, what does freedom look like? Well, I need to be free to be able to go to the doctor whenever I need to without copays, deductibles, or premiums. I need to be free to work in an environment that if my colleagues and I decide that we want to unionize, that we don't have to be worried about being bullied by the people who own the company. I need to be free to make a living wage in this country. I need to be free to have a legal system that does not just judge me because I am Black or brown or indigenous. I need to be free to enjoy clean air, clean water, clean food. So let's put some stuff on that freedom. So that is what has to happen. So I think that we can both accept and celebrate that Juneteenth is a national holiday because of the person that worked the hardest to get it. But the ultimate tribute to her and to others of her generation, to the elders that are, the 3 elders that are still alive from Black Wall Street, hello somebody, is one, to get them reparations right away. Right away, like yesterday, get them reparations, and their descendants and other people, Black people who suffered at the hands of white terrorism, flat out, just flat out. So that's how we need to start that reparations journey. But for the global question that you asked me about Juneteenth itself, let's put something on that. That is material, that will change material conditions. That's what that's about. And what I want to say to my sisters and brothers and family and friends who are not Black, who are not African American, you know what? When the liberation struggle is about liberation for all of us, when we deal with the isms and the inequity in our system, we're dealing with it for all of us. So the African American community that had to endure not only chattel slavery, but policies that continue to exacerbate our very existence in this country right now. When we unite, see, that's what the Poor People's Movement was all about. That you know, when we think about the Poor People's Movement, that is what Dr. King was talking about, and Dr. William Barber in the 21st century, where he is convening poor people from all walks of life for us to stand up for justice in all of its forms. And so we need conscious-minded people who are not Black to say the injustices done to Black people must be remedied. And that in remedying in finding remedies for the transgressions against African American people, we find the remedies of injustice to poor whites, to poor Hispanics, to our indigenous sisters and brothers and family and friends, to the Asian community, to everybody that is in between. And so we must be in solidarity, both caste and class. And you know what? The power brokers know that. And that's why they always trying to divide and conquer us in the way that they try to do. They know that when we unite like this, that great things will begin to happen. Poor whites and poor Blacks and poor Hispanics and poor indigenous people, and maybe people who are not so poor. Because I can tell you this, you guys, that on this journey, I have met some incredible people who have wealth, who know that this system is rigged and that it is wrong. And some of those very people are supporting my campaign. So I want to shout them out too, because we got to do this together. We just want all conscious-minded people. Come on, sign up for this justice journey that we are on. Come on, we need you. Everybody, join. Get on the love train, as Dr. West called it. It's room.
Excellent. Excellent. Yes, this is only the beginning. Juneteenth is only the beginning, and there will be much more. Now, let's shift gears very quickly. Last Friday, the Justice Department declared it is suing the state of Georgia over a voting law passed in its Republican-controlled state legislature designed to make it harder for Black voters to vote. This Friday, we in Germany woke up and learned that the Supreme Court decided to strip the Voting Rights Act of its remaining power to protect minority voters, in particular Black Americans, the #1 target of conservatives in America. However, as we all know, such tactics are just the most recent iteration of a generations-long continuum of disenfranchisement, beginning with slavery, then Jim Crow, and currently with police brutality, mass incarceration, and of course, voter suppression. Many Democrats see reparations as the key to uprooting and deconstructing the systematic force of white supremacy once and for all. The state of California has, for instance, enacted a reparations task force. So have we at DA. As an Ohio representative of the House, how would reparatory justice fit into your mission? And could you see a reparations task force started within the state of Ohio itself?
Yes, I could, and I definitely support Congressman. I definitely support HR 40. You know, I think that's a start. I know that we need to go ahead and get that thing passed through the Congress so we can begin to study. And I only put that in air quotes because I'm just trying to be a little sarcastic. I mean, the study has really already been done. We already know what should happen, but it is good to bring people together and collectively figure that out in a more formalized way. So I would definitely support and vote for HR 40 as a start. Dr. Sandy Darity and his wife, Professor, I think she's a professor, but Mullins, have written a very tremendous book laying out what reparations are and what the fixes can be from a policy perspective and otherwise. And so I do recommend that that others read that book. And so, no, I definitely support it. And yes, we could have a task force in Ohio. I would support that. But more importantly, we need the federal government to act and to act very quickly. We can't continue to pretend like we don't know that these things are happening, that there is a generational impact. And that's what we're talking about. When we talk about systemic racism, we're not talking about a prejudice here or there. You know, a little bigotry here, a little bigotry there. We're talking about a whole system that was designed to oppress and suppress Black folks deliberately by design. We're talking about the fact that the 40 acres and a mule never happened. And if it had happened, if General Sherman's order had happened, it might be a different reality for African Americans economically in the United States of America. And so you asked about voting and the Supreme Court. You know, not only did they give the wrong ruling in Shelby v. Holder, I'm old enough to remember Shelby case, and then they went in and doubled down on that ruling just a couple of days ago. What the lesson is for all of us conscious-minded people, and yes, is the target the African American community in particular, but I think the target is the new rising majority of America, of conscious whites, conscious Black, conscious Hispanic people, indigenous people, Asian people, and the swirl in between. That is what they are bucking up against. They can't stand it. And so they are using their power in very sinister ways. There are 400 bills percolating in legislatures all across this country, 47 states, and the great state of Ohio is one of them, unfortunately, all at the hands of Republicans because they're cowards. Only a coward would use the people's power to try to suppress the vote and instead of trying to win straight up or to win by having better policies that attract people to your party. No, you got to cheat and steal and kill. And the reason why I use kill, because a lot of depending on who gets elected to these offices determines whether or not we will have regulations that keep our water clean, our air clean, our food clean. It determines how money is invested in education and other things that make for a civil and vibrant society. Yes, it does matter. It matters. So our very livelihood is on the line. with these folks. And so we got to pay more attention. We got to pay some attention to legislatures and governors' mansions. I think we focus inordinately on the Congress and the presidency. I'm not saying we shouldn't focus on those things, they're important, but we need another team of people who say that my goal is to make sure that we get conscious-minded people elected to legislatures across this country and to governors' mansions across this country, and as attorney generals, et cetera, secretaries of state who believe in expanding and protecting the right to vote. I ran for Secretary of State in 2014 on the Democratic ticket. Why? Because I believed that the worst Secretary of State in the country at that time needed to be challenged. I was running for democracy itself. And even though I knew that I was walking through hell with gasoline clothing on, it was worth the fight. And it is the very reason, some of those same reasons that drove me to run for Secretary of State when the odds were against me, is some of the same reasons that drive me right now to run to be the next Congresswoman of the 11th Congressional District. So, Antar, we got to deal with these things head on. We got to have outside pressure and inside pressure, but we cannot relent. Justice is a journey. It's never a destination. So if people want to know why are we fighting these same battles, because evilness is still here. I often say evil never sleeps, so good can never take a vacation. It's each generation's job to advance justice, to protect the justice that we have, and to advance it for the next generation, even if we don't live to see it.
Excellent.
We got to fight these folks. Bottom line, they wicked.
Yep. Excellent. Thank you. All right. Now we're going to move on to questions submitted by our audience. We have about we have enough time.
We have 3 questions that we have from the audience to ask. Is that okay timing wise for you, Ms. Turner?
Yeah, as long as I need to be out of here a little bit before 1. I realize my answers have been, but yeah, I think we can get to 3, and I'm going to shorten my answers a little bit.
Okay, no problem. Here are 3 questions that we got. We couldn't get through all of them. So the first question comes from a DA member from your own district. Trey Sean is his name. He's an Ohio 11 voter who also serves as the chair of DA Netherlands and co-chair of the Global LGBTQ+ Caucus. He says, first off, thank you for speaking with us again, Senator Turner. I'm happy to have already voted for you in the primary from the Netherlands. I organized your last talk with DA via our mutual friend, Tara. I'm from the west side of Akron, where growth has been slow but steady. As you know, the Akron-Cleveland area has been on the rebound lately, but there's more that needs to be done. The area is vibrant with the arts, creative talent, and a good place for business. A crucial part of doing this is the ability for people to travel easily and safely. I see public transport as an important part of that. Amtrak, RTA, and Metro are lacking. How will you fight for the continued growth and improvement in the area and combat the decline in population?
I think you're on mute.
Thank you, Trayshawn, so much, and thank you for sharing with all of us. You didn't have to do that. You voted for me already. It has me smiling from ear to ear. And yes, our dear friend, Councilwoman Tara Mosley Samples from the Akron area. We do need money for public transit. When I was on the state Senate, I was on the Transportation Committee, constantly fighting to get more funding for public transit. Unfortunately, our Republican colleagues who were in control did not agree. And we have a lot of the decay that we are facing, not just in 11th Congressional District in Ohio and the nation, is because of de-investment. We have not made the requisite investments in public transit and that infrastructure that is necessary. And so just as I fought for more money for transit, I am going to continue to do that in the U.S. Congress. And also to really, one of the things that we have to do a little differently, deeper than what we're doing right now, is to really have those community meetings and educate the public about what is going on in a way that inspires them to action, because ultimately they can't out people power us. And so having that knowledge, and I think Caitlin, I think you named some things that the Dems abroad, and I think education was one of those pillars. We got to educate people a little more about what's happening in their name. And then it is our obligation as the people that if this is not the vision that we have for the future, is to say to the elected leaders, you hold our power to make our lives better. So I am going to work on that. Also, earmarks are back. They have been gone for a while. They're back. And part of my vision to provide provision for this district is to start to work to push for some certain earmarks, and transportation. Public transit is on my list to be able to do that. Infrastructure reform, all of that stuff is so important. And Trayshawn, you mentioned the arts, and when you talked about the arts, it also made me think about the professional people, the people who work in the arts. And linking that to Medicare for All, yet again, that is another industry that the people who are artists of this society could really use Medicare for All, because they are working in a profession that is very much needed for human growth and development, but they are more vulnerable to not having health care, just as people who work in the gig economy too. So just thank you for that. But yes, I am a big proponent and will continue to be for investments in public transit.
All right, thank you. And the next question we'll hear from Evan, a California voter in Germany. Evan says, many left-wing constituents like me have put our hopes in and felt disappointed by other leftist politicians. How will you be a more effective leader of the left while in office? And along those lines, Danny, an Arizona voter in France, asks, what strategies would you adopt as a representative to truly get truly progressive legislation?
Well, to Evan and to Danny, and disappointment is part of life. So what I would say, and I try to do this myself, because I've certainly been disappointed by leaders. Sometimes people disappoint you. I'm sure you've disappointed some people throughout your life too. What we must do, and Dr. King had a wonderful quote to this effect, which I don't have memorized, so I'll not try to do it. But it was about disappointment. Disappointment does not mean that we're never going to make progress. It's okay. Disappointment is part of the human experience. But I would say that we should not throw away people who are, in fact, our best allies or our best co-conspirators, to quote one of my dear friends, Michael Render, aka Killer Mike, because we need allies and we need co-conspirators. That people who are on the communal leadership side, because just because somebody's elected doesn't make them any more a leader than being in the community leadership side. We got citizen leaders. For you to continue to push all of us, even when I get there, I'm going to have to be pushed. We're probably in the line like 99.9% of the time. But people have to be pushed. And sometimes they have to be shored up. And in order for them to be shored up and pushed, that comes from the movement outside. So it's okay to be disappointed. What I would just encourage is not to be totally disappointed and discouraged to such an extent that you throw up your hands when the very people who are the closestly aligned to this kind of society that we are trying to create are there fighting. That sometimes there's some dynamics that people may not understand. Now, I do believe on some of these issues, we got to take it all the way. On some of them, we do. We got to have a strategy, both inside and outside, to use our collective power to push and fight for. I keep going back to Medicare for All because there was a period of time where even Medicare as it exists right now, there were forces fighting against that from becoming a reality, and there were forces fighting for it to become a reality. And it took generations before Medicare for 65 years and older became a reality. I want you to use that as your example. Think about any great movement in this nation and even in the world. There were forces that were bumping up against those things to not happen. But then there were people who said, no matter what you say, I am going to keep pushing, even if I don't live to experience it. Abolishing slavery is the best ultimate example that I can give you to say to you that it is okay to be disappointed. It is okay to be mad as hell. But what I do not want you to do is to ever, ever, ever give up. Because that is the time when the breakthrough is coming. That those of us who are fighting against the status quo must continue to be forever encouraged to fight against the status quo for what is just, for what is right, and for what is good. And it is okay to be disappointed by people. Yeah, I might disappoint you a little bit too. But never doubt whose side I am on, because to disappoint is human. But we cannot give up and we cannot turn on one another. And that is what the status quo power brokers want us to do, is to turn on each other. We can't do that. We can't afford to do that. So there are going to be certain times where I believe that the progressive movement must leverage its power in the same way that Senator Joe Manchin does. When he say, I'm not voting for something, and then he gets all the attention. Well, strategically, the progressive movement has to do the same thing. On certain issues, we got to say we will not be moved. And then on other issues, we might have to find some common ground, and that's okay too. And Sister Turner is experienced in that. I've done that throughout my career. But there are certain things that we got to say we will not be moved on. And that's it, and that's all. But we got to have strategy. Let me quote Brother Killer Mike again. We got to plot, plan, mobilize, strategize, and organize. Sister Caitlin, I think that is in line with what you said that the Democrats abroad are working on. So be mad. It's okay to be mad, but let's channel that anger to get the progress that we need. Let's elect more conscious-minded people from all walks of life to every single level of government so that we can create a progressive America and a progressive world, because everything that we do in this country has an impact on somebody else's country. Everything that we do in our various states has an impact on somebody else's state. That we are Democrats abroad, as you know better than I do, citizens of the world. And I applaud you for caring about not only what is happening in this country, but your lived experience as Democrats living in other nations. You edify us because of your experience. And we can never, ever, ever give up, give out, ever, when you're fighting for justice. We're going to have some mountaintop moments and we're going to have some valley moments. But baby, let it be known that what the progressive movement is fighting for is for humanity. Who can disagree with wanting to give people health care? What's wrong with that? Who can disagree with wanting to cancel student debt and relieving the burden? Who can disagree that we need to have more racial justice? Who can disagree with the fact that we need to make sure that people can unionize and collectively bargain? I went down to Bessemer, Alabama to stand side by side with our sisters and brothers, family and friends in that state, because I realized that what happens in Alabama can happen in Ohio, as I have 3 Amazon facilities in the district that I want to represent again. What happens over there happens over here. And Dems abroad, you know that. You know that. And so you collectively are part of the solution that we need in the United States of America. So I don't ever want you to give up or to give in, but you can be mad as hell. I'm mad as hell lots of times because I am mad at injustice in all of its forms, and I'm never going to stop fighting for justice. That's what this journey is all about, doing for ourselves in our time, but also being very forward thinking that what we are fighting for, we may never live to enjoy it, but that doesn't stop us from fighting for it. There were people who are along my ancestral line who never lived to be free, but it didn't stop them from fighting for freedom. And so we are the 21st century manifestation of that. Of great freedom fighters from all ethnicities, all identities, who may not have been able to enjoy the very freedom that they were fighting for, but it didn't stop them from fighting for it. So I don't want anybody to stop fighting for it. So Evan and Danny, liberators are on the move, and we are the 21st century manifestation of freedom fighters, baby, and we are on the move. We're not giving up. We're not giving in. We're going to keep the faith and we're going to keep the fight. Dems abroad, I love you guys so very much. It was so wonderful to be back with you. I miss you. And we got to make sure that we don't take this long again to get back together. Again, I am running in Ohio's 11th Congressional District. If you want to be supportive, please go to ninaturner.com. That is ninaturner.com. I want you to keep the faith, and I definitely want you to keep the fight. To the Madam President, Chair, Vice Chair, Co-Chairs, to the moderators of this, to all the people with the fancy titles, I salute you. I just want to thank you for bringing us together. Kitten, Candace, Caitlin, and Antar, you did such a phenomenal job. Again, I salute the Dems abroad. I love you guys so very much. Keep doing what you're doing, and until we meet again. And I hope everybody has a great holiday weekend.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for being with us. We know you have such a tight schedule, and we're really very appreciative that you've been so generous with your limited time to listen to us and speak with us today. We hope to have you again soon, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
yes,
We will do this again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you also to all of you. We do have a few more thank yous to extend. Please stay with us for a few more minutes. Yes, a lot of people went into making this event possible and making it a success. Of course, we need to thank our international chair, Candace Kiristan, for her support, also for Kenton Barnes for his support during this event. It wouldn't have been possible without you guys and your teams. At the Germany Progressive Caucus, we also really want to give a shout out to our steering committee members who are just the best. Deandra Anderson, Hayhat Hajo, Sarah Malloy, Stephen Foos. So glad to have such an awesome team working on projects like these. We also really want to give a big thank you to Cara Turrentine and Anna Mesa from Nina Turner's team, who were so enthusiastic and helpful in coordinating this event with us. And of course, thank you to everyone who tuned in today. And also to everyone who shared their questions. We're so sorry that we couldn't get to them all, but we're glad that she was able to address at least a few of those. Antar or Candace, I think y'all wanted to make some remarks as well.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to everybody who showed up. This was a very cool experience. I hope you guys got a lot of insight from Ms. Turner, and you have a taste of what progressive minds are thinking in the Democratic Party.
Candace wanted to
Candace, yeah.
make some remarks as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, thank you. Well, yes, Caitlin and Antar for taking this leg, so to say, of the Meet the Candidate series. As I mentioned, as new confirmations come in from other candidates running, those will be posted on our website, democratsabroad.org, and we hope that you can join those as well. I did want to invite you. I know we have some members on this call, but also some people who might not be members of Democrats Abroad. And if you aren't, I would invite you to join us today at democratsabroad.org/join. You'll receive regular voting updates, policy updates, really staying in the loop about what the community of Americans overseas is doing and how we're advocating back home. I also wanted to invite you to contribute to our cause by heading over to democratsabroad.org/donate. We are an entirely volunteer-run and donation-funded organization, and any bit you can contribute will help us continue putting on events like those today. All right, having said that, I will toss it back over. One last thing, actually, I wrote in the chat box, 36 governorships coming up. What Ms. Turner said, I think all of us can agree on that we do need to be considering the 2022 midterms coming up. We need to be looking at the governorships coming up. So more of a reason to be active in Democrats Abroad again and be with us as we move towards the midterms. If you are an Ohio 11 voter, I think Caitlin's going to reiterate this in a second, but we are here to help. The deadlines are coming up soon. So if you haven't requested your ballot, I do invite you to stay on this call for just a few more minutes and get it taken care of so that you can participate both in the primary and general election for this Ohio 11 seat. All right, thank you everyone for joining us today, and Caitlin, back to you.
All right, yes, thank you for being here. If you enjoyed today's event and you want to stay up to date with future opportunities like this one, please consider joining the Progressive Caucus. You can sign up, as I said at the beginning of the talk, at the following web address, www.democratsabroad.org/PC, and become a member today. It's really easy. And if you want to reach us here in Germany, you can email us at progressive@democratsabroad.de. And our next Germany Progressive Caucus event will be a DA resolutions update, where we'll be discussing several resolutions that are pending a vote together with the resolution authors. So I hope that someone is able to post the link in the chat for where you can RSVP, and you guys can sign up today. And Antar?
Yes, DA members should also keep an eye out on their emails. There will be a call for applications to join the DA Reparations Task Force, and they'll go out soon. We are looking for committed individuals who believe that injustice anywhere, as Martin Luther King once said, is a threat to justice everywhere. In this heated climate of racial, political, and yes, environmental injustice, we need a team to develop long and short-term goals in making progress toward reparations at the local, state, and federal level. We will be looking to develop and coordinate strategies to push education for Americans, advance legislation, and ultimately reverse the erosion of civil rights and voting rights in America today.
Yes, and last but not least, make sure that everyone has gone to www.votefromabroad.org to register and request your absentee ballot if you have not yet done so this calendar year. And if you are in need of voter assistance, particularly if you're an OH-11 voter, we do have volunteers here who can help you get squared away today, as Candace mentioned. So there's going to be a link posted in the chat box. And then there we go. Candace just posted it. You'll be redirected to our great voter assistance volunteers, Teresa Ritterhoff and Jennifer von Estorff, who will be able to help you out. So thank you, everyone. I see someone saying they're looking for the event. I'm gonna post that in the chat right now. But yes, thank you everyone for joining.
All right, thank you, everyone. And just to be clear, again, if you do need voter assistance, you have to leave this meeting and go to this link that I just put in the chat, and our volunteers will be there to help you get your ballot. All right, thanks, everyone. And again, Caitlin and Antar and Kenton as well, appreciate your organization on this event, and we look forward to seeing you at the next Meet the Candidate event. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. If you want the Germany Progressive Caucus event, the resolutions one, stick around. I'm just going to put it in the chat. I'm just opening it up now so that you can RSVP right away. Here we go.
Sue just posted it.
Oh, thank you, Sue. Okay, great.
Message.
All right. Then thank you, everyone.
Thank you.